Hello everyone. So, last week I talked about my top 5 baits for late winter, early spring. If you did not check out that video, go check it out. So today we're going to talk about locating the bass in late winter, early spring. Before we get started, subscribe to this channel, click the ding-ling, share, comment, like the video. That really helps me out, and it's free, so why not, right? So we're really going to go into basic but kind of in-depth tips that really people don't know about locating bass in that 40 degree water to 50 degree water area there. Early spring, like here in Colorado, once the ice gets off the lakes, up north, same, wherever, when that water is cold. And this is going to help boat fishermen, bank fishermen, kayak fishermen. It doesn't matter if you have a fish finder or not, you're going to get a lot of info on this. First and foremost, really the biggest tip I can tell you is try to find the warmer water. And here is a great place that you can find warmer water to start with. The dam. Alright? Big chunk rocks hold heat. Big riprap dams, just places with big rocks, are going to hold heat. That's going to have bait fish congregating on them, bass congregating on them. It can be phenomenal in cold water situations. So, that's my first tip. Check out the dam. That is always a great place to start. Now, as far as lures for my top 5, the only one out of those top 5 I say do not throw on riprap and all that is a lipless crankbait, a trap, whatever you want to call it. Those things get hung up in the rocks like crazy. That's the only one I won't throw on those. Okay, but the A-rig is phenomenal. Dragging a tube or a jig is phenomenal. A jerk bait, obviously, suspending over those rocks. All that stuff, great for fishing around the rock dam. Also a spinnerbait. I didn't talk about spinnerbaits really, because kind of throwing the A-rig, but a lot of times spinnerbait can just murder them in that cold water. So that's a great place to start. Another place to find warmer water is any other structure that's going to hold heat, like trees, either laydowns or submerged timber that's growing out of the bottom of the lake, things like that. Trees also hold heat, so it's also another great spot to check if you can find all that stuff. Okay, as well as dock pilings, things like that. Not necessarily under the docks where it's shaded, but just around those dock pilings and stuff like that can also, they'll hold heat, especially if they're metal. They really hold heat. So just look for things that are going to hold heat better. As far as also finding warmer water, a great tip is the northwest corner of the lake, northwest side of the lake. Reason why is the sun is shining on it all day, every day. When it rises in the east, it's shining on that western bank, especially the northwest side, and it just shines on it pretty much all day. It gets the most sun throughout the day. That's going to be the first bank that's really going to thaw, and most of the time, obviously there's other factors into that, whether there's running water and things like that, but generally it's going to be the first to thaw. It's going to be the first to warm up. It's going to be the first where you're going to start getting spawners in there once we get into that time. It's really a great area to look, the northwest corner, in that general area. I'm not saying it's got to be exactly right in the corner of the lake or whatever, but you get what I'm saying. Now, the next tip is, if you know the lake and you know a general area where they really spawn, you know, back in this creek or on this bank, they get loaded on it when they start to spawn, that's always a great place to start too. Just start moving out. Your way out, away from that stuff, deeper water. They are going to be typically still in that area. There are still going to be a bunch of fish there. They're just probably going to be more out. The great thing also about this time of year is the ice just starts coming off. Bass are already kind of clumped together. They're not all, well, they are all clumped together. You can find big pods of them, a bunch of them in just one little spot, making just back-to-back casts catch a bunch of them. As opposed to once we start getting into the spawning time, from that 55 to 65 degree water temps, where bass are kind of all over the place. You got pre-spawn, you got fish that are starting to spawn or are spawning, all the way to post-spawn fish. They're kind of freaking everywhere. You can just pick them off in different spots. Here, you find a school of them, and you can just, that can be great. Now, also, main lake drop-offs going into those creeks, those spawning creeks, obviously a lot of people know that's great time. Here is another tip, and this is a tip that goes anytime you're struggling throughout the year, really, to be honest, and I talked about it a lot for fall fishing, is finding bait. It's a big thing year-round, but especially this time, you find the bait, you're going to find a school of bass there. Those fish have been lethargic. They're starting to move a little bit more, starting to get ready. They want to feed up before spawning. There's going to be a bunch of them with the bait fish. So find bait fish. If you do not have a fish finder to be able to locate those schools of bait, you're fishing off the bank, whatever, you can a lot of times see, especially shad, flickering on the bank. You see bluegill running around, whatever. You're in a good spot. Another thing is follow birds. Birds always know where the bait fish are. Okay, you see a blue heron, you know there's bait fish there. So find the bait fish, you'll find the bass. It's the same as fall as it is right now. So that's another huge tip. The last thing too is, I will say, do not be afraid to lock one lure in your hands. Not saying not to be versatile. If obviously you got one thing locked in your hands and it's not working, then yeah, change it up. But it's not like fall, where I've talked about this in fall too, where you got 10 rods on the deck, whatever, all with different baits on them, and you're probably going to catch one bass on each of those rods. You know what I mean? All different baits. People call it junk fishing on the fall. So this time of year, it's more likely, if you find something, you find that school, a bait, you find the bass, you can just lock one thing in your hand, and once you catch one, you're going to catch multiple with that thing. That's my other tip, is don't be afraid to just lock a bait in your hand. You're going to catch a few here in this school, and then maybe you'll stop catching them and you'll think, well, they're not all hitting this thing or whatever. Probably more so just the bait moved, bass moved, or you need to just go find another school. They're going to be moving around. So those are really my big tips. There will be some that will actually start to move shallow, like they're spawning. I'm not talking dead shallow, like in a foot of water, but some of them are going to start moving into those creeks already, or pushing up towards the bank already. They really are. A lot of times because, well, the sun's hitting the water up in that shallower area. It's warmer up in that shallower area. There's less water to warm up from that sun. A lot of times bait fish will be the first ones to move up there. And there's going to be grass starting to grow in those shallow areas already. Believe it or not, there will be grass there. And bait fish are going to move in there and feed on plankton and all that. So people think, oh, I got to fish 10 plus feet deep this time of year all the time. Not necessarily. So that's my other thing. So that's pretty much it. Look for warmer water, rock dams, northwest corner, always a great place with warmer water. Don't be afraid to lock a bait in your hand. Find the bait fish. Don't think you always got to be deep, but deep can also be a great thing. And also, if you know the lake, just expand out of the banks where you find them spawning. they're not going to be that far. So really the main tips. Did I miss anything that I mentioned? I don't know. But either way, that's pretty much it. Just keeping it simple. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys on the next one.